On Fool's Day, I was lying in an empty hospital room, waiting for my life to end, when the doctor told me my terminal brain cancer diagnosis was wrong. I rushed home to see Victoria, only to receive a barrage of voice messages from Mr. David early in the morning. "You people upstairs are so inconsiderate, playing cosplay on the balcony in the middle of the night." I was stunned. I had clearly been secretly recovering in the hospital for the past few months, so how could anyone be playing cosplay on the balcony? On Fool's Day, I was actually lying in an empty hospital room, quietly waiting for my last moment to arrive. But then, the doctor suddenly told me that my terminal brain cancer report was actually someone else's. I was impatient to go home and see Victoria, but instead, I received a barrage of voice messages from Mr. David downstairs. "Upstairs, you two are so rude. For several nights in a row, you've been playing cosplay on the balcony, even past midnight." I froze. For the past few months, I had clearly been hiding my illness from Victoria and recovering in the hospital. Seeing the picture Mr. David had sent me, I ignored the joy of learning about my good health, and quickly called him. "What do you mean by the message you sent me?" Mr. David's anger flared when he heard my voice. "My daughter is only 5, she woke up this morning and found your stuff on the balcony. She even asked me why the uncle upstairs beats the auntie every night, and the auntie seems so happy. I told you, can't you just go get a room? Damn it." The man's voice from the receiver assaulted my mind, and it took a long time before I found my own voice. "Are you saying that every night there are a man and a woman doing *that* on my balcony?" "Yes, don't you know what you've been doing?" Mr. David suddenly remembered something and lowered his voice, asking, "Victoria calls Master and Daddy every day on the balcony, isn't she calling you?" After hanging up the phone, I felt my blood run cold, chilling me to the bone. No, it's impossible. Victoria and I have been married for so many years, how could she betray me? Victoria and I met in high school. We went from school uniforms to a wedding dress, and we were an envied, perfect couple. Years ago, when she disregarded her frail body, and selflessly saved me when I was beaten by delinquents, I developed feelings for her. After her proactive confession and an unexpected one-night stand, I married her. When I drove to the company, Victoria was not in her CEO's office. Initially, to fulfill Victoria's ambitions, I secretly pulled strings as a behind-the-scenes shareholder, making her the ostensible CEO of the subsidiary, Stonebridge. I then retreated behind the scenes, fully committing to being a stay-at-home dad. Looking at the empty office, I was a bit puzzled. It was working hours, and there were no urgent business matters for Victoria to attend to. Where could she have gone? Driven by a strange impulse, I turned and entered the adjacent office. Leo, my assistant, looked flustered when he saw me enter the office. He started to stand up, but then seemed to remember something, and froze in his office chair. I noticed his strange expression, his flushed face, and his heavy breathing. I asked, "Leo, are you not feeling well?" Leo clutched his stomach, his face troubled. "Yes, I apologize, Ethan. I've had a lot of social engagements lately, and it's caused some stomach issues." Looking at Leo, whose lower body was obscured by the desk, I couldn't help but feel suspicious. Leo, whose full name is Leo, was Victoria's good friend. I even used to be jealous of him when Victoria and I were dating, but told me they grew up together, and if there was ever anything between them, it wouldn't have been my turn. Though it felt a little strange, I didn't think too deeply about it. I asked a few questions about Victoria's whereabouts but received no answer. Just as I turned to leave, I suddenly glimpsed Victoria's handbag, and a pair of black stockings on the sofa nearby, items I had given her. Once the seed of doubt was planted, it began to take root and sprout. I masked my churning emotions, walked straight out of the office, and then turned to hide outside. Sure enough, sounds that made my face flush and heart pound came from inside the office. "You scared me to death. Why is that dead husband of yours, who's supposed to be waiting to die in the hospital, coming to find you today? What are you afraid of? Once he dies, the property my mom talked about will all be ours. Leo, come on." Then followed a series of unrestrained, intimate moans and wet sounds from a man and a woman, accompanied by items falling to the floor. I instantly erupted in rage, my fury skyrocketing from my feet to my brain. How could this be? They knew all along about my brain cancer. Months ago, Victoria had dragged me to the hospital for a full-body checkup. The moment I got the medical report, I deliberately lied to Victoria. Because I really didn't want a girl, who had followed me since high school, and accompanied me through the low point of my business to worry about me. So, from beginning to end, I never told anyone about my brain cancer. Even after that, I secretly began to plan Victoria's future, leaving her enough assets for her and Lily to live comfortably. On the way home, I called the hospital. "Dr. Alex, I can choose not to pursue your hospital for the trouble caused by your negligence. But you need to tell me, who is the person who truly has terminal brain cancer?" That day, Victoria had said I looked a bit gaunt, and was very worried about me, insisting on dragging me for a physical exam. She also had Mark, our driver, get a checkup at the same time. I had thought my usually careless wife had changed her ways, but now, looking back, everything was full of suspicious points. "Mr. Ethan, I'm truly sorry. That day, when you came for your checkup, because you and your wife's driver entered the examination room one after another, and your physical characteristics were very similar, our staff inadvertently mixed up the reports. You mean, the one actually with terminal brain cancer is Leo? Well, I guessed correctly. What goes around comes around, and villains get their comeuppance. Leo was a troublemaker in school. When I did a background check on him, I even accidentally found out that he had harassed female colleagues at his previous company. But out of my doting love for Victoria, I didn't obstruct her behind-the-scenes manipulations. He usually seemed honest and dutiful, but I never imagined they were secretly involved. After receiving Dr. Alex's confirmation, I instructed him to keep it confidential. The hospital, fearing it might escalate into a medical dispute later, quickly agreed, and promised not to reveal that I was in good health. Upon returning home, I involuntarily paused at the sight before me. Items were strewn haphazardly on the floor, and the refrigerator was empty. Lily, who usually wore beautiful princess dresses, and had her hair neatly braided, now had messy hair and soiled clothes, sitting on the floor like a beggar. Lily. I hugged my daughter, who was gaunt from hunger and gnawing on dry, hard bread. Lily saw me and burst into tears. Watching sob uncontrollably, I gently stroked her back, suppressing my anger. "Lily, shh, don't be afraid. Dad-I's home. Tell, why aren't you eating?" Before I went to the hospital, I had specifically asked Victoria to find a nanny to cook for the family, but the empty refrigerator, Lily's messy hair, and box after box of dry bread on the floor all told me my precious daughter had not been well cared for in the months I was away, and might not even have had enough to eat. Just as I was about to call and confront Victoria about how she could so cruelly abandon our daughter to be with her lover, a rough woman's voice came from inside. "Little brat. What are you crying about? Dare to disturb my sleep? Do you want another slap?" I stared, stunned, at the middle-aged woman dressed in Chanel and expensive jewelry. Is this the nanny Victoria found?" The woman seemed surprised to see me. "Ethan, why are you here? Why aren't you out making money in broad daylight, hiding at home seeking peace?" I suppressed my anger. "Who are you? Why are you in my house?" "Bah, what, your house? Listen clearly, this is my niece Victoria's house, and you and that worthless girl should have already gotten out of my niece's home." With that, Carol spat forcefully on the floor. I found it strange. Victoria and I had been married for 5 years, and she had told me her parents died young, and she had no family left. But what did this woman mean? How much more had Victoria hidden from me? Could it really be that because it was April Day, fate was playing such a huge joke on me? I ignored the woman, took a few sets of Lily's clothes from the bedroom, and went to a nearby hotel. Watching ungracefully stuff food into her mouth with her hands, my heart ached. Damn, how did I ever wrong her? To let her own relatives move in and mistreat my daughter and me. I pulled out my phone and sent a text: "Prepare for asset division, collect evidence of Victoria's infidelity, and find out the situation with her and the woman occupying my house." I had originally thought that, out of gratitude for her saving my life, I would accept being cheated on, divorce her, and just split the assets with her. But now, I didn't want to let her off easy. Seeing that Lily had mostly finished eating, I stroked her head and said gently, "Be a good girl, Lily, and tell Daddy what happened in the months after I left." Lily sobbed, speaking one word at a time, "Daddy, I don't want Mommy anymore. Can you take me away?" My heart trembled. It turned out that after I left home, Victoria didn't follow through on her promise to find a professional nanny for Lily's daily care. Instead, she took advantage of my absence, letting her aunt, Carol, move in and just abandoning Lily with a few boxes of bread to fend for herself, while she went straight into Leo's arms. Carol, that vicious woman, was living the high life, decked in gold and silver with the money I paid, while my daughter was eating dry bread and wearing dirty clothes. Just then, my phone rang. It was Victoria. "Ethan, why are you back? Didn't you say you were going to another state to meet a client? Did you close the deal?" Ha! I'd been gone for months, and there hadn't been a single concerned call or text. The first sentence of this call wasn't about my well-being, but asking about my success. A pang of disappointment and anger hit me. What was I even expecting? I truly wondered if she had anyone else in her eyes besides her work, like her husband or her daughter. Seeing that I didn't speak, Victoria snapped, "Ethan, are you testing my patience? Who gave you permission not to answer me? Who gave you permission to lose your temper with my aunt? No matter what, she's your elder. How dare you be so insolent for a little brat? I should have abandoned her long ago." I couldn't hold back my impulse. "Shut up, Victoria. Who gave you permission to talk about my daughter like that?" Victoria seemed not to have expected that I, usually so gentle and good-tempered, would lose my temper with her so fiercely. She was silent for a long time. "Victoria, let's get a divorce." "What did you say?" Victoria's displeased voice came from the other end of the phone. I spoke calmly, enunciating each word. I said, "Let's get a divorce." I heard a clear TSK sound through the receiver. She apparently didn't believe I would propose divorce so easily. Victoria took a deep breath and said, "Ethan, you'd better think this through. Where can you two go without me? How much money can you earn?" In her eyes, I was just an incapable stay-at-home dad. Even when I first graduated, and was a salesman constantly on the road, I only made a pitiful $5,000 or $6,000 a month. Not to mention, after Lily's birth, I sympathized with Victoria's unwillingness to stay at home and her desire to make a name for herself in her career, so I voluntarily gave up my sales job and devoted myself entirely to taking care of Lily and Victoria. I hadn't been in contact with society for 3 or 4 years. What she didn't know, however, was that it was precisely during my time as a salesman that I found my birth parents, and became the behind-the-scenes chairman of the company. Just as I was about to refuse, Leo's slightly contemptuous voice came from beside her. "Ethan, the CEO is also doing this for your own good. After all, you haven't worked in a long time. No one will hire someone your age now. What a pair of adulterers." Victoria had brought the man back again. Recalling the picture Mr. David had sent me, I spoke coldly, "It's so late. Why is Leo still at my house?" Leo's nervous voice came from the other end. "Ethan, don't misunderstand. I just drove Victoria home. If you mind, I'll leave immediately. Don't let me affect your relationship." I chuckled. As expected, Victoria's voice was sharp and grating. "Ethan, don't bully him here. Don't forget who saved your life back then. I'm telling you, we're all waiting for you to cook. If you are not home in 10 minutes, don't even think about coming back." I abruptly hung up the phone, feeling utterly annoyed, when I glimpsed the red cord amulet Lily was wearing around her neck. The carving looked strange. "Be a good girl, Lily. Tell Daddy. Where did you get this amulet?" "Mommy and Uncle gave it to me." My internal alarm bells went off the moment I heard that. Forget, Victoria hadn't cared about Lily at all after giving birth to her. I had initially thought Victoria was just in a bad mood, because her body changed after giving birth. But now, it seemed impossible for this vicious woman to be so kind. So I immediately took off the amulet, and sent a picture of it to a friend in the industry. My friend, likely in America, hadn't replied yet. Just then, my phone rang. I answered it. It was my childhood friend, Sarah. A fragile crying sound came from the other end. Ethan, I want a divorce. After settling Lily, I went to the restaurant Sarah had chosen. Sarah and I grew up together. She was always my shadow as a child. But later, I heard she married a delinquent youth, and our contact became less and less frequent. I had heard that Sarah's married life was very difficult, and I had often advised her to leave a man who wasn't worth it, but each time she would brush it off. I looked at the woman before me. She was no longer as bright and charming as she was when she first graduated, but now possessed a hint of mature melancholy. It seemed she had suffered many grievances with that man. Sarah poured herself glass after glass of wine, her shoulders trembling intermittently from crying. Ethan, he cheated, and even my son isn't my biological child. I only found out today that I've been raising his mistress's son for 5 years. I was stunned by her words. How laughable. April Day really played a huge joke on both of us, feeling a sense of shared misfortune for the person in front of me. I gently comforted her. All right, now that you've realized, let's cut our losses in time. Tell me, which man is so ungrateful? I'll help you get even. Sarah, her face covered in tears, threw herself into my arms. Her sobs pierced my heart. Just then, Sarah's phone lit up on the table. I glanced at it and froze. Sarah, your husband is Leo. Sarah seemed startled by my voice, and quickly got up from my embrace to wipe her tears. Yes. Ethan, do you know him? She then brought her phone closer. I looked at the picture of the smiling family of 3, and the little boy Sarah was holding had the exact same amulet around his neck as my daughter. Before I could process this series of coincidences, my phone rang. Ethan, that thing you sent me is deadly. Someone wants to harm your daughter. I called back immediately. Before I could even ask, the person on the other end spoke urgently. Ethan, someone wants to harm your daughter. That's a fate-swapping charm. Someone wants to swap your daughter's luck. This deadly ritual will be complete in 1 more day. I was too shocked by this series of events to speak. My throat was tightly constricted, and blood boiled and burned within me. Under my friend's explanation, I finally understood that this amulet was a fate-swapping charm. After wearing it for 7 times 7, or 4 to 9 days, it could swap the wearer's luck. This was what ordinary people called changing one's destiny. Not only that, the person swapping your daughter's fate is an expert. This item not only swaps the wearer's luck, but also that of their direct relatives. My face instantly showed disbelief. How could this be? Even if Victoria was heartless, destiny. Just as I suspected that Victoria had been deceived and used by Leo, Sarah stammered, Ethan, well, have you ever thought that your daughter isn't Victoria's biological daughter? I looked sharply at Sarah. She was startled by me and quickly waved her hands, explaining, I'm sorry, Ethan, I didn't mean anything else. It's just... My mind seemed to be caught in a storm, on fast forward, with countless thoughts and theories wildly colliding in my head. That's right. I grabbed Sarah's shoulders, a sudden realization dawning on me. If wasn't Lily's birth mother, everything made sense. Sarah married Leo 5 years ago and became pregnant shortly after. But strangely, the child currently with Sarah is not her biological offspring. Combining this with what I saw at the company, Leo's mistress must be Victoria. Ethan, I'm certain I carried and gave birth to my child for 10 months. Do you think my own child might have been harmed by them? Tears streamed from Sarah's clear eyes like a broken dam. I gently patted her shoulder, hesitating slightly. Sarah, this might be a bit presumptuous, but I want to confirm with you, did you really have relations with Leo back then? I had always wondered how Sarah, who was a model student in class since childhood and a good girl in her parents' eyes, came to willingly marry the delinquent youth, who was always spoiling for a fight. Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief at my question. Then she lowered her head and softly said, Ethan, actually, I didn't marry Leo willingly. Through description, I finally learned the true reason why she married in a hurry back then, not even inviting a single friend. During a graduation party, Sarah and Leo got drunk and accidentally had relations. And I were also at that party. I finally understood why, after that party, Sarah, who used to always follow me around, began to subtly distance herself. even avoiding me when we met on the street. Later I became pregnant, but on the day I gave birth, I was very tired, and slept for 3 full days before waking up. When I woke up, I saw Leo holding a son, saying he was the child I gave birth to. My mind again flashed to the nearly identical fate-swapping charms on both children, and I felt like there was something I was overlooking. What date did you give birth? And at which hospital? Sarah looked at me, puzzled. April the 18th, at Metro Hospital. Why, Ethan? I looked at the woman who had followed me since childhood and now exuded a mature charm, forcing myself to suppress the excitement in my heart. Sarah, I need you to help me get something to this place. You mean, you want me to do a DNA test with your daughter? This isn't right. How could this be? How could your daughter's mother be me? If it were me, then Ethan, you. Scene's face flush. Blushing shyly, I couldn't help but temporarily set aside the weight on my heart. I held her shoulders and stared at her seriously. Sarah, at that party, Victoria and I were also there, and we were both drunk. And when you gave birth, just like me, you didn't see the child immediately. At that time, Victoria had a difficult labor. I didn't dare to relax for a second, not even drinking a sip of water for 24 hours straight, standing guard outside the operating room. In the end, it was Leo who handed me a cup of water. Perhaps because I hadn't rested and my mind was under extreme tension, I eventually fell asleep. When I woke up again, I saw Victoria had already woken up from her hospital bed, with Lily beside her. But I was also afraid that my suspicions would ultimately be disproven. Sarah, please help me get Leos and his son's hair. Perhaps that way we can get closer to the truth. After saying goodbye to Sarah, I returned to the hotel. Opening the door, I saw someone I never wished to see, Victoria. Victoria sat languidly on the sofa, a cigarette between her fingers, while Lily cowered in a corner, trembling slightly. Victoria, what are you doing here? I instantly shielded Lily, who was in the corner, behind me. Victoria paused as she flicked off ash from her cigarette and sneered. Hey, Ethan, what's wrong? I told you to come home, and you didn't. Now I come to get you myself, and you are still not satisfied. Seeing cough from the smoke, I quickly handed her to the hotel staff outside and calmly looked at Victoria. Victoria, is Lily truly your biological daughter? I saw Victoria pause her smoking, a strange expression crossing her face. It was minuscule, but I caught it. I continued. I was only gone for a few months. Where's the nanny you promised to get for Lily? Is this how you treat a child when I'm not home? Leaving a little girl alone at home, neglecting her, not even giving her a hot meal. I feigned indignation, accusing Victoria of her inaction. Are you throwing a tantrum about this? Victoria seemed surprised. I smirked inwardly. She had the guts to cheat on me, and now she's worried that I know. Otherwise, you weren't like this when I first met you. I looked at the woman before me, dressed in designer clothes and wearing exquisite makeup, her face full of impatience. Even if, due to some special reasons, I couldn't expose my true background, I had never, in all these years, mistreated Victoria in the slightest. Ostensibly, I gave up my sales job for her, sympathized with her pain during difficult labor at the hospital, hired a postpartum nanny for her, insisted on formula feeding, and fully supported her return to her career, while I became a stay-at-home dad. Behind the scenes, I used my shareholder status to help her become the CEO of Stonebridge, and I covered the company's losses when she made questionable decisions. I truly didn't know why Victoria would betray me. When I first met her, I was injured and my optic nerve was affected, so I couldn't see. Victoria herself meticulously fed me porridge and comforted me. How did she become like this now? Slap. A stinging pain on my face snapped me out of my memories. You dare to zone out while talking to me. I'm telling you, Ethan, you are just a dog beside me, and that little brat was born from me. Without my money, you too would still be begging on the streets. If you know what's good for you, get back home, and apologize to Leo. Don't make a big deal out of nothing here. I looked at the woman before me, even her exquisite makeup couldn't hide the malice on her face. I felt as though I had never truly known this person I shared a bed with. A biting cold, like a venomous snake flicking its tongue, crawled up from my feet. All right, I agree to go back with you. I grinned at Victoria. Victoria, if you still refuse to stop, then don't blame me for being ruthless. I made a call and arranged for Lily to stay at my private villa, a place even Victoria didn't know about, instructing the staff there to care for her meticulously. Having slept in the same bed for 5 years, Victoria had no idea I was actually the son of a local wealthy businessman. I only found out when I was fresh out of college, visiting clients as a salesman. My wealthy father, with tears in his eyes, recognized me as his long-lost son at first glance. Later, I learned that I was supposed to have been born with a silver spoon in my mouth, but a servant in the family had secretly abducted me and sold me to human traffickers. Simply because I had the excellent genes of my wealthy father and musician mother, I was sold for $2,000 more than other children. After that, I lived with my adoptive parents. Unfortunately, my adoptive parents were unlucky. They passed away from illness before I even graduated from college. My grandmother took the welfare benefits the government gave me. I then relied on my own efforts, got into a top-tier university, and completed my studies by joining the military to earn enough money for tuition. After reuniting with my birth parents, I initially wanted to tell Victoria right away, and bring her to the villa to enjoy the good life. But my father stopped me. You were abducted because we were too ostentatious in our youth, flaunting our wealth and influence. From now on, I just hope you can live a simple, stable, and happy life. Connecting this with news I had seen about friends becoming jealous and retaliating after people suddenly became rich, I agreed with my father. After that, I continued to live a low-key life, only occasionally taking Victoria to fancy restaurants or buying her expensive gifts, under the pretense of having won lucky coupons or received discounts. Aren't you going to cook? We are starving. Watching and her aunt sitting on the sofa with their feet up and impatient expressions, I couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. They had truly lived here so long they thought the house was their own. As usual, I brought the meal to the table, 4 dishes and 1 soup, all flavorful. Perhaps it was because of my good genes. I learned everything quickly, and cooking was no exception. However, the very next second, clang, my face was hit by hot soup. I angrily looked at Carol, who was spitting, but then another plate was thrown at my head. What are you looking at? You do nothing all day, just lie around, and can't even cook a decent meal. Only our Victoria would take you. You are a useless piece of trash. To be called useless as a man, while my wife ignored it, playing on her phone beside me. I felt incredibly disheartened. Let them enjoy their high life for a bit longer. When everything comes to light, their good days will be over. The evening farce ended abruptly. While was showering, I quietly hid under her bed and pressed the record button. It was rather ironic. Victoria and I had been married for 5 years, and aside from that one drunken night at a class reunion, we had never had intimate relations. Honey, do you think we've been exposed? I have a feeling that worthless Ethan has discovered something. His attitude towards me isn't like it used to be. As the mattress gently sank, Victoria's voice became clearer. You are right, maybe it's because he's defending that little brat. How's the boy doing? Your baby swap scheme really worked, replacing her with the daughter who looks like Ethan. He truly didn't suspect anything, and he's been much more generous with money. Sarah. That hussy. A couple of beatings and she'll be obedient. If hadn't been blind back then, I wouldn't have had the chance to impersonate Sarah and become that worthless man's savior. My heart suddenly jolted at her words. What? The person who saved me back then wasn't Victoria, but Sarah. In my senior year of high school, I got into a top-tier university. Because of my adoptive parents' deaths, my other relatives weren't willing to lend me money for college, so I used my holidays to work part-time, washing dishes to earn living expenses. That night, I was helping out at the restaurant where I worked when I saw a table of burly male customers, holding beer glasses, making advances on 2 girls at the next table. From somewhere, I found the courage. Facing a table of 7 or 8 burly men, and despite the manager's protests, I, thin as I was, helped the 2 drunk girls escape. However, I ran into them on my way home. You were from that table just now. Don't come closer. You, what do you want? Go away. Before I could finish, a beer bottle shattered on my head, leaving me dazed. Punk, you dare to play hero in front of me. Brothers. Get him. In the dim, quiet alley, they surrounded me. Punches rained down on my face and stomach. Little jerk, you haven't even fully grown up, and you dare to ruin my fun. I'll kill you. My eyes were bleeding from the blows, my vision blurred. I collapsed on the ground, rainwater washing away the bloodstains on my body. I was ready to quietly wait for death when the sound of police sirens echoed through the usually deserted alley. After the thugs ran off, I didn't see the police, but I saw a figure in white. She helped me up and took me to the hospital for bandaging. But I was so badly beaten that I had almost lost all my senses. My eyes could only distinguish light and shadow, and my ears constantly rang. After 2 months of meticulous care from the girl, my eyes finally recovered. When I removed the bandages, the girl in the white dress told me her name was Victoria. But at that time, I had no background and was just an ordinary student. Why would Victoria want to impersonate someone else? Before my parents went to prison, they told me to live well with Ethan. Why do you think that was? I've been married to him for 5 years and haven't seen where he's rich at all. Instantly, my mind became a tangled mess. All thoughts intertwined, impossible to unravel. Victoria's parents weren't dead. How could they be in prison? Did her parents know my true identity? What was going on? Enduring the nausea of listening to Victoria and Leo's syrupy sweet talk under the bed, and hearing Victoria's even breathing, I left directly and rushed to Vance. William, who was the person who abducted me back then? I urgently asked the aging man before me. My intuition told me that the man before me, my biological father, Mr. William, must know something. He unhurriedly sipped his cup, then slowly spoke, "You know everything now." I looked confused, trying to understand his meaning. Something quickly flashed through my mind. "You always knew Victoria was cheating on me." Mr. William chuckled, non-committal. "Then why didn't you just tell me back then? Letting me stay in the dark all these years?" I demanded, a hint of anger in my voice. He patted my shoulder and said clearly, "When you first returned to the Vance family, although we are blood relatives, I knew that once you set your mind on something, you wouldn't change. During this time, I didn't fail to have my people hint at you, but what did you do? You ignored everything. You were completely devoted to that woman. So, to make you see clearly, I specifically arranged for the hospital to swap your and Leo's medical reports on April Day, so you could follow the clues and discover the truth yourself." I was stunned. So, the medical report from the hospital wasn't an unintentional mistake. Then, what about Victoria? Why would she inexplicably impersonate the person who saved me, and even agree to marry me when I was broke? Mr. William was also surprised by my words. "You only liked her because she saved you back then." Meeting his unreadable gaze, I nodded silently. "That's right, when I was in the hospital, even though I couldn't see or hear, I truly fell for that gentle woman based on her actions. It's just that somehow later, Victoria turned out to be far from the person I had imagined. However, given that she meticulously saved me back then, and confessed her feelings, I didn't think much of it and agreed, what a mess, that couple truly had wicked hearts. They weren't even honest in prison." Mr. William was so furious he slammed his cane heavily against the floor. "Victoria's birth parents were the servants who kidnapped you from our home back then." What? I was too shocked to speak. It turned out that Victoria had impersonated my savior all those years ago because her birth parents had told her 2 things before they went to prison. First, my background was extraordinary, and if she wanted to be above others, she had to capture my heart. Second, I was the culprit who got them locked in prison. However, that couple hadn't made it clear, probably fearing that the Vance family would discover the truth if their lie was exposed. Looking at the video recording Mr. William handed me, and the DNA test results from the hospital, I finally unraveled the mystery in my heart. The next day, I floored the gas and sped to the company. Leo watched me walk straight into his office, his face filled with mockery. "Ethan, shouldn't you be at home cleaning at this hour? What are you doing here?" I didn't answer. Instead, I punched him hard. None of your damn business. Leo, knocked to the ground, was furious. Damn it. Ethan, what are you doing? Don't think I don't know this. If it weren't for Victoria, you are just a good-for-nothing who can only cook and mop floors. You and that worthless girl daughter of yours would have been sleeping under a bridge a long time ago. You are completely out of your mind. Hearing call me crazy, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. You are the one who needs to see a doctor. You are just a parasite who only knows how to climb by relying on women. Don't think I don't know how you got in here. If your brain is sick, you should get it treated instead of Victoria this, Victoria that, all day long. What? You want to call her Mom? Do you want Victoria to breastfeed you? Maybe if you call me Dad, I might even consider giving you some money to get your head checked. Just as I was about to swing the nearby vase at Leo, a sharp female voice rang out from behind me. Ethan, have you caused enough trouble? Watching such concern for another man right in front of me, her legal husband, I calmly sat in a nearby chair, crossed my legs, and fiddled with a pen. Victoria, do you really have nothing to say to me? Perhaps it was my calm reaction, or perhaps her own guilt, but for once, a crack appeared on her usually proud and arrogant face. I don't know what you are talking about. Get back home right now. Seeing me make no move, and the surrounding employees pointing and whispering, Victoria became furious and embarrassed. A good-for-nothing like you dares to cause trouble in front of me. I told you to get back home, didn't you hear me? A sharp slap was about to land, but I didn't dodge. Stop it. Victoria's wrist was gripped by the man beside her, turning purple. I looked at the dozen or so bodyguards gathering. The sheer number of them suddenly made the office feel a bit crowded. I frowned. Didn't he say I should handle it myself? Mr. Williams still isn't at ease. Remembering Williams' fuming expression, a warmth spread through my heart. Young, my apologies for being late. Victoria looked at the scene before her, somewhat shocked, then struggled to turn her head, and cursed at me. Good for nothing, don't think I lines believe you just because you hired a few actors. You've been my kept man for years. Are you trying to find some presents and boost your ego now? A sharp slap. Before I could speak, a bodyguard, quick-witted, gave Victoria a sharp slap. I watched Victoria's expression shift from dazed to shocked, then to furious, and felt a surge of satisfaction. What? Do you feel wronged? Wasn't it you who impersonated Sarah, deceived me, and broke up our family of 3? Wasn't it also you who had an affair with Leo after we got married? Wasn't it you who used despicable methods to swap my daughter's fate? With that, I used all my strength, and kicked her in the chest. Victoria fell to the ground in disarray, struggling to get up, spitting out a mouthful of blood, her eyes filled with resentment. A bodyguard looked around and shot a sharp glare at someone nearby who was trying to call the police. I warn you all, this is the eldest young master of the Vance, and also the hidden major shareholder of Stonebridge. Before you do anything, you'd best consider if you are qualified enough. Upon hearing this, the onlookers quickly quieted down and stopped what they were doing. I looked at Leo and Victoria on the floor with interest. The two looked at each other, then began muttering to themselves, "What? How is this possible? How could this be? We never found out after so many years. Wasn't he just a good-for-nothing?" Before he could finish speaking, Leo was kicked to the ground by a bodyguard. Watching writhe in pain on the ground, clutching his stomach, I stood up and lifted my leg, my well-made dress shoe pressing heavily on Leo's fingers. Leo tried to struggle, but his neck and arms were pinned to the ground by the bodyguards, unable to move. He could only watch helplessly as I tormented him. I smirked wickedly. Leo, you should count yourself lucky, you didn't actually do anything to Sarah. Otherwise, I would have chopped off your third leg, and shoved it into your mouth today. So what if he's the eldest young master of the Vance family? He still has brain cancer, and not much time left to live. I grinned at the somewhat frenzied Leo, and spoke. You still don't know, do you? That medical report was swapped. Haven't you noticed your memory getting worse lately, and always having headaches and nausea? I was immensely satisfied with Leo, pale-faced and dumbfounded. Turning, I grabbed Victoria's hair and pulled it back hard. What? trying to run. Don't you want to spend a little more time with me? I savored Victoria's trembling like a leaf. Victoria, when you were messing around with other men and hurting me and Lily, did you ever imagine this day would come? The woman on the floor had disheveled clothes, a few strands of hair stuck to her face, which was distorted in pain, red and bruised, with traces of blood at the corner of her mouth. There was no trace of the elegant, haughty woman who usually ordered me around. Victoria tugged at my pant leg, tears and snot streaming down her face. Ethan, I was wrong, please forgive me. I won't mess around with that worthless man anymore. I'll follow you, let's live well together. Shut up. I gave her a hard kick, a look of disgust on my face. Ha, you want to be my wife? You want me to touch you? I find you repulsive. With that, I reached out, and took the cup from a nearby bodyguard, then poured its contents over her, just as Victoria's aunt had once done to me. Ah, bastard. Ethan, you scumbag. You degenerate. I hope you die a miserable death. Your daughter is just like Sarah, a worthless trash nobody wants. The scalding tea made Victoria nearly break down. Growing up, relying on her beauty and intelligence and my silent support, when had she ever suffered such humiliation? Upon hearing this, I said gravely, Victoria and Leo have engaged in unprofessional conduct, mistreating employees internally, taking kickbacks externally, and disregarding company regulations and professional ethics. Effective today, Victoria, Vice of Stonebridge, and Leo, President Secretary, are immediately dismissed, permanently disqualified from re-employment, and blacklisted from the entire industry. At these words, everyone present gasped. The group already has a vast network of industries, and blacklisting them from the entire industry effectively cuts off all their lifelines. I leaned into Victoria's ear, as for your precious son. Since you are so fond of fate swapping, how about swapping his fate with a pig's? I smiled, ignoring their curses behind me, and casually tossed the 2 fate-swapping charms to a nearby bodyguard. The bodyguards understood my signal, and quickly took the 2 back to the vans. I had to leave them some breath, after all, Mr. William hasn't gotten his revenge yet. However, at the moment, I had more important matters to attend to. I quickly drove to the villa. The moment I opened the door, I saw Sarah, in a floral dress, holding Lily and telling her a story. Sunlight streamed through the glass, falling on the woman's face and making her appear even more gentle. At my sudden embrace, Sarah blushed shyly. Oh, stop it. The child's still here, Tilda. I squeezed Sarah's waist and asked, why did you save me back then, but leave before I woke up? She leaned into my arms, delicate and soft, and spoke softly. That day, I had originally planned to wait for you to wake up. But then I received a call saying my mother had fallen at home, and Victoria happened to be passing by, so I asked her for help. I gently stroked Sarah's face. So, after I woke up, you didn't explain things to me, and you just stood by and watched Victoria steal the man you loved. Her beautiful eyes widened, and her mouth fell slightly open. How did you know? How could I not feel it, being constantly watched by eyes as bright as the sun? I thought, sniffle asterisk, I saw you growing closer to Victoria after you woke up, and she was the school's recognized beauty, so I just assumed you. Feeling the woman's shoulders tremble in my arms, I tightened my embrace and kissed Sarah's forehead. Silly girl, I'm sorry, I was late. Watching the woman in front of me cry, and remembering what Victoria and Leo had done at the class reunion, I felt both furious and heartbroken. It was because of them that I mistakenly thought Victoria was the one who had been with me at the hotel, and since she had shown me kindness, I took responsibility for her. I never expected that Victoria and Leo were actually together that night, and it was Sarah who spent the night with me. I kissed the woman in my arms again. 3 months later, after divorcing Victoria, I proposed to Sarah, with our daughter Lily serving as the cute and well-behaved flower girl, bringing us the engagement rings. Sarah looked at the island of flowers I had meticulously planned for her, crying tears of joy. Ethan, I really never thought I would actually marry you one day. Do you know how much I love you? The way you spoke confidently and eloquently on stage, the way you gently put a bandage on me when I fell and got hurt, the way you would sometimes show a sadness I couldn't understand while running on the track, the way you bravely stood up to protect other girls, while working your part-time job. At this moment, Sarah was sobbing uncontrollably, her hand trembling as she held the microphone. I want to say, Ethan, I've seen every side of you, and I truly love you, so very much. Looking at the sincerity and love in her eyes, I finally couldn't hold back. Are you done speaking? Hi. Before could react, I pulled her close, our warm breaths mingled, my love conveyed through my lips. Foolish girl. A woman's love is expressed in words, a man's in actions.